Keeping it organic.
Yes! So I'm resetting. This is Spooks McGhie from the Late Bloomer podcast. Welcome to the show. Doing a fourth episode, and I'm really feeling like super hyped up because I just came to a conclusion, to a realization. I think that we invented hip-hop. When I say we, I'm talking about my culture. I'm actually an American, and I'm super American. I'm probably like the most American, but I'm also super Jamaican. There's people who told me, man, you're so Jamaican. But here's the thing. So I may be an American. I may have been born in America. I may be the most Jamaicanist ever that ever Jamaicaned. And I probably am lost to a lot of things that are considered true Jamaican culture because I'm a late bloomer, that's the name of the podcast. But I am going to stand on my ground, and I'm going to say for a fact that I genuinely think that Jamaican people invented hip-hop. Yes! And so basically, the reason why I think this is this. Okay, so think about this. So in 1970... I don't remember the exact date. I want to say early 1970s, like 1971 or something like that. DJ Kool Herc, right? He went to the Bronx when he was a young man, and he brought some things that he used to do when he was in Jamaica. His father was a musician. And basically, he would spin records, and he would do something that's called toasting or talking or chatting on records. Basically, you know, hyping up the crowd, getting people all hyped, and you know, talking over the records. And the whole sound system, the sound system that we know today, is essentially based off of what they invented, which is basically the two turntables, the microphone, the sound system with the big speakers. And that party, I mean, it's very widely known. It's very, you know, openly recognized that DJ Kool Herc is the creator or the godfather of the genre. And so I think that if we really want to be technical about exactly what happened, you know, if he's from Kingston, Jamaica, and what he does is a Jamaican art form, then therefore what we've expounded on essentially started in Jamaica. So Jamaicans invented hip hop, right? No? Okay, well, before I get into that, I just want to talk about some general things. First of all, I hope that everybody is being safe. I understand that this pandemic is causing a lot of issues. If anybody wants, I'm going to put a number in here just in case anybody wants to call and discuss this with me. 470-755-2225. Again, I'm going to post that on Instagram, and I'm going to post that on Facebook. So the people that are listening, I'm doing this live. Of course, the actual production itself is not going to be live. It's going to be something that I will put up later, maybe in about 2 days or so. Maybe I'll put it up tonight. Who knows? It actually is really easy to put it up. But, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, this COVID-19 thing is crazy, man. I really didn't want to talk about it because I felt like everyone has their take. Everyone has these conspiracy theories. Everyone is concerned about what's going on. Everyone thinks that they know what's happening. Some people are saying, you know, that it's safe to go out. Some people are saying it's not. The president sort of alluded to the idea of taking disinfectants or inserting light into the body. And what trips me out about this dude talking is this basically like, it's kind of funny that he just does not take responsibility for what he said. He doesn't go, oh yeah, I was wrong, you know, my bad. He just goes, no, I said that on purpose because I wanted to make you look stupid. It's like, oh my gosh, bro, this shit's ridiculous. But yeah. So what really made me start to realize? Okay, so I'm getting off topic, but basically, I'm gonna give you a general update. So, as me personally, I've just been having a pretty basic week. Doing a lot of nothing. Trying my best to stay productive and busy, but I've been having an issue with I I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just like some kind of like low energy, taking over my energy and making me feel like underproductive. I mean, I had a positive moment where I did some really great things that I feel could actually be useful. I have a single that I'm gonna drop on Friday. Pretty much, I'm gonna do it as like a single, but the single will sit by itself, and I'm not going to make any money off of it because I'm thinking that I'm going to do it as a full fundraiser, at least my portion. I know that the producer who originally did it, Stone Winston, he would want his portion. I'm not going to delegate what happens with his portion of the money, but I definitely think that in this time it would just be a great gesture. And I feel that if I'm going to put out a single that's based around my grandmother, that it would be super tacky for me to be making money off of it. And it would seem like I'm doing it in a way where it's just like, oh, I'm using my grandmother's death as a way to capitalize off of it. So I really felt, deep connection to this idea that I had with this song for my grandmother. And so I didn't want to just like, release. I wanted to release it because I felt like the wisdom that my grandmother dropped on me, I shouldn't keep it to myself. And she said a lot of really cool things. What's up, Aja? So she said a lot of really cool things that stuck with me. But in the song, I kept it down to a few things like, okay, all in, take care of your habits, that your habits are good ones. Or something about habits are easy to make but hard to break. Take care of your habits, that your habits are good ones, stuff like that. Or she used to say this old Jamaican saying, puss belly full, rat body bitter, which basically, if I'm not mistaken on the translation, means something like if your eyes are bigger than your stomach or something like that. And if you if a cat is eating a mouse and he's eating it quick, that he forgets about the butthole, so the butthole is bitter. I think there's just something about pacing. The idea of that catchphrase is pacing. Puss is a cat, the belly is full, the rat, they're eating it, the bati is the butt, and it's bitter. So I put that in the song. I also put something that she used to say, because she was a vegetarian for a long time. She spent most of her life as a vegetarian. So whenever people would talk about food, she would always say, no moo moo, no cluck cluck, no swish swish, no oink oink on my dishes. And it's just a real big loss, because I don't know if y'all know, but the whole reason why I even do music in the first place is because of my grandmother. Like, everything about what I do, like I said, is all because of her. Like, she bought me my first studio. She, she didn't buy me a studio per se, but she did like let me use her house as a main thoroughfare to record stuff. Oh, so side note, the shirt that I'm wearing is a miraculous piece of cloth, and I don't understand how it's able to survive all the test of time. But this is a marching band shirt from I want to say 2003. So I mean, how many years is that? I'm not good at math. So, but yeah, it says "Who are we" on the front, and on the back it says "Knights," which was the Irvington High School in New Jersey's mascot was the knight. A knight in shining armor, a blue knight. And so, for some reason, I've been able to keep this shirt intact, and I have no idea why or how, but this shirt has been able to stick around for the longest. So, shout out to Jason Clark, one of my other influencers as far as the reason why I do music. It's just like, there's so much different influences that I gotta shout out. I gotta give credit to. When I was in marching band, I probably wasn't the best student because I spent a lot of time cutting class and breaking into the marching band when I wasn't in school to go and talk to my band members or play spades or play around with the drums, and a lot of my percussive style comes from the marching band. So really big shout out to Jason Clark, and I hope that him and his family is doing well. But what I was saying, so my grandmother is the focus of this single that I'm dropping on Friday. And so what happened was I essentially grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist because of her moving me out and bringing me to New Jersey from Florida. So once I got into her house, it wasn't a question. I'm going to church with her on Saturday. That's how it does, and we're worshiping the Sabbath. So you better not turn on the TV. You better not do this and do that on the Sabbath. It's the Sabbath. So it was very important to her. And so I felt that it was a good idea to take the song and make it basically an ode to what she was always talking about, like stressing the importance of the fourth commandment. Like if they put the fourth commandment in with the other commandments that are like murder, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, whatever. If they're equating worshiping the holy 24-hour Sabbath with murder, that maybe, just maybe, it is important. So that was her thing. She was like, in my house, you better not do this on the Sabbath. You better not do that on the Sabbath, because that's what she was about, And so in the beginning of the song, I talk about the Sabbath and worshiping the Sabbath and the fourth commandment and all that stuff. And then I also talk about some stuff that she would say because she was really into health and fitness. And she would talk about, the body is a temple of the Lord thy God and all that stuff. And, so it did hold some weight, and I do still hold it to this day a little bit. And a lot of and actually the song itself references an old Mento song. See, Mento music this is the reason why I'm glad that I'm talking about how hip hop is heavily influenced by Jamaican culture, because Mento music is like the calypso, the traditional Jamaican music that originated in Jamaica. And one of the most popular songs that you've probably heard is called Linstead Market. It comes from, Harry Belafonte made a very poppy or like watered down version of this song. If you listen to his song, he goes, daylight come and me want go home. And if you listen to her song, my grandmother's version, which is the original Mento version, it goes, daddy light and me want go home. So there's a little bit of more raw patois to the lyrics of this song. But I found it interesting that, the people that came to the Bronx in the 70s, that, started these parties, that started to do these gatherings of sorts. This is what they know. They knew about the traditional music, Linstead Market, Dry Weather House, like all these old calypso songs that are, not pre-calypso, pre-reggae, that started the sound of what we know as reggae, and reggae music, which also started the sound of what we know as like dance hall, and then dance hall and chatting and screaming on records and that kind of thing transitioned to being hip hop, which is pretty much when sampling came into play, when people were spinning records, they would speed up the old roots reggae, and they would do the dance hall to it, and it was just like a smooth transition. But one of the things that really makes me think that a lot of the originators of the culture that we know today are pretty much Jamaican is not only is DJ Kool Herc widely accepted as the godfather of hip hop, and he's straight from Kingston. I also think that there's a lot of some of the best rappers that you have ever heard are actually of Jamaican and West Indian descent. I mean, Biggie Smalls, um, Busta Rhymes. Uh, I mean, Special Ed, uh, Heavy D, Joey Badass, Smith and Wesson, so many. I mean, Pete Rock, CL Smooth and Pete Rock, and then not just talking about Jamaica in general, but just overall West Indian influence. Like you got a lot of Trinidadians, a lot of Haitians, a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, and these are like some of the top people, like as far as like lyricism and catchy music and catchy songs, catchy hooks, and that's why I feel so strongly. It's like some of the best architects of the culture are Jamaican, Grand Poobah, like I said, Haji, Joey Badass, DJ Kool Herc, Sean Kingston, Pete Rock, you know, the list goes on. Spliff Star, Busta Rhymes. Well, Spliff is actually, I believe, Trini, but you know, there's also a lot of like, really good MCs that are just from the West, like the Caribbean of Caribbean descent. ASAP Ferg, Fife Dog. There's just so many really, really good people of West Indian Caribbean descent that pretty much helped to shape what we know today. Not only that, hip hop and Jamaicans and just Jamaican culture in general has often been infused in the genre overall. For as far back as the early beginnings, people have always been having. Oh, that's my air horn. I just wanted to do that again. But people have always had that, and so it's always been a thing for as long as I can remember. There's always been a heavy, heavy influence on the culture, and it led me to come to a kind of a clickbaity type of conclusion that, well, if Jamaicans are directly responsible for this sound and the way that we do the sound and the systems in which we implement to make the sound exist, that in essence Jamaicans literally invented what we know today as hip hop. So I got some people here that said that they would want to talk to me about this on live, so I'm gonna hit them up and see what they. Hey, what's going on? This is the Late Bloomer Podcast. How may I help you? Who am I speaking with? Lorenzo? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, having a little trouble hearing you, but so what do you think? What do you think about what I'm saying? Am I being clickbaity? Am I am I
Say that again.
am I being clickbaity? Am I just saying some stuff that doesn't make any sense? I mean, you were there from the beginnings, right?
Yeah, hip hop. I mean, my generation is what pushed hip hop off. I mean, hip hop is. Most. I'm listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
You saying some good stuff. But hip hop consists of so much that it literally goes beyond music. It's a way of life. Hip hop is a way of life. It goes from the clothes to the graffiti to the breakdancing to, it's so broad that it evolved into a culture all in of itself.
Right, and that's true. I don't think that we can say that hip hop is more than just rapping on beats. It's a culture. There's five elements. There's lots of it's influencing fashion. It's influencing sound. It's influencing the way people speak. We hear newscasters saying slangs like off the hook and things like that. Things that we know for a fact come directly from the hip hop culture. There's a lot of talking in your background though. It's picking up.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I understand that now at this point, hip hop has evolved way past just what we know, which is just like, oh, it's two turntables and a microphone, and people are breakdancing, and they have on like Kangols and shit, or Adidas. But what I'm saying is that you know, Tom, what's his name? What's his name? Not what's his name? What's the name? Ford? What's his name?
I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about.
The guy who invented cars in the United States.
You're talking about, well, one of the things was Ford. Ford was one of the first biggest car dealers in America.
Ford. There you go. So what I'm saying is, when this guy Ford came up with the horseless carriage, right? He pretty much started a movement. Now there are people who have invented new cars that are way more advanced than what he had initially thought of. But we can say without a shadow of a doubt that what we know today as the modern automobile industry is something that started from one person's idea, right? Or a group of people that thought that this electronic, mechanical version of a horse and carriage could be bigger than just the one little thing, and it shook up the whole industry. So what I'm saying is, when Kool Herc decided that what was going on in the Bronx was stressful, and he wanted to have some parties and make people feel good, and what he did was he set up the system that was known in Jamaica. Now the Bronx was bad, but you got to think about it, man. Jamaica was way worse. And they were still having a good time, putting together good parties and having a good time and creating a culture that when he came to New York, he brought along with him. The sound system that we know today was based off of what they were doing in Jamaica.
Well, when you talk about the sound system itself, I mean, that's a whole different feel. You're talking about a feel. But when hip hop first started off, it wasn't even, it was just raw talent. It wasn't even about a sound. I mean, and I'm talking about rap. I'm just going on to the rap. It was two people outside with no beats. It wasn't even beats. It was just rap. People now call it battle rap, and but it's different from how your generation do battle rap today than how we did it or they did it back then. So it was just command of language, of slang language, of like you said, language. Putting words together, metaphors, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So. And then the music came later. The music, the music behind it came later.
Yeah.
Came later. You just had two dudes, just spilling.
Yeah.
Just spilling, and everybody want to see who the ill is. And then and even before they really start putting music per se behind it, it was just beatbox. The beatbox. Somebody back there spitting with the beatbox, and then you was rapping over that.
Yeah.
And then they started. That's when then it went into the records, cutting the records. And then someone rapping and this, that, and the other. It went. What I'm trying to say, it went through one degree to another degree to another degree to another degree. So when you talk about sound, I mean, like you're saying, reggae, flipso. I mean, that sound, that rhythm. That came from Trinidad and different other places. Of course, that became a real big influence on.
So I think that what you're saying is like, yeah, of course, what we know today, as far as hip hop and the sound, before sound came, before there was even recording equipment, I remember I was watching the documentary on Quincy Jones, and he was talking about how he said to Kendrick Lamar, "Hey, where did hip hop come from?" And he probably, like, it blew my mind because he was about to put him on game because he knew what he was gonna say. He's gonna say, "Yo, the Bronx," but he's like, "No, it came from Africa when the priests would chant to the rhythms." So I know that what we're talking about, where people are getting together and showing their prowess and their lyrical ability and their ability to play with rhythms and play with sound and basically kill boredom by talking and dancing. The Africans did it before slavery. The Africans did it during slavery. The Africans did it after slavery. Whatever Africans ended up in the Caribbean did it too. So, yeah. Essentially, the answer is not that Jamaicans in general invented hip-hop, but that hip-hop was born out of desperation and people that were just wanting to entertain themselves and show each other's abilities and creative, thing, like you said, bebop and, spoken word, and the literature and word has always been there, and reciting words in front of people and around people has always been there. And so, yeah, I mean, hip-hop was always a thing for as far back as as far back as we can speak. We were implementing rhythm and sound and words and using it to entertain people. You go back as far as, like, the stories about Jesus talking. He used a lot of parables and similes and metaphors, and he would stand up in front of people and get the crowd together. And if anything, I feel like what Jesus did was the most hip-hop thing that ever existed, because he pretty much was just spitting his stuff. But what I'm saying is, I understand that things go way back further than 1970 when Kool Herc had the parties in the Bronx. However, what I'm talking about is what we know as the person on the microphone with the beat rapping. That thing came from Jamaica.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you just the Jamaican sound and their music, period, just their music. Before rap was rap, Jamaicans was rapping.
Yeah.
You understand? I mean, they wasn't singing the way but they didn't necessarily call it rapping.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily call it rapping. I mean, Jesus Christ, you can look at Bob Marley. I mean, what he was doing was singing? No, kind of his cadence was like more rapping than singing.
Yeah.
Don't let love fool you. Oh, no. It wasn't, don't let love fool you.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing that.
Yeah, it was very talk singy, like kind of like how rappers are like nowadays singing, but not singing, like belting. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jamaicans was doing that.
Yeah.
Wow. They called it reggae.
Yeah. That's true.
They called it reggae. And when you look at music in general, everything was a bite off of something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you made it your own thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what rapping kind of did. They just made it their own thing. And like you brought out very well about the house parties in the Bronx, and your history is pretty much on point in the area that you're talking about. I mean, it's pretty much on point. So, but hip hop is so vast. It's just so vast.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember just, I remember catching the path over there to New York, just to hear the battles over in the Bronx, just to hear the battles, and then, when it came out with bebopping and rocking on top, and then it was break dancing, and
so,
all of that became part of hip hop culture.
So basically, when you were a child, were you like watching all this unfold?
you. I mean, listen, man, I literally, I don't know if you listen to Drink Champs.
Oh yeah, Nori.
You know, Maury.
Yeah.
And the iPods and stuff, and I'm listening to Maury and some of the stories, and like, wow, I remember that. Not saying I remember that. I'm like, I remember that. Like,
yeah.
I was around that. I was there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, and you know, and you don't know what's going to be relevant in history when it's actually
happening. Yeah.
You know, you may be there, but you never knew. Like, you know, who would have thought that hip hop would be the way it is today?
Yeah, it's trippy, real trippy.
Yeah, you know, all nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
You can't name a nationality that you know that's not into hip hop, especially young people. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, some old heads grow out of it.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, you know, if they ain't making money in it.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, the way they dress, the way they sneakers. I remember the Kangol. I remember the whole facet of it. You know, you had to have. I mean, the hat, everything. It was a look.
Yeah.
You know, it was a look.
Well, here's the thing. I want to ask you something though. Because not very often do you get to talk to people who were actually there to witness this happening in real time. So what was the first time that you heard or saw something that was hip-hop related that made you go, man, this is something special, and then made you want to find out how to get into these clubs and how to get to these parties and how to find out where this was happening? And like, how did it, like, what happened? What was the song that made you go, wow? How did you feel? I really am interested in that, you know?
Like, really, it was, like I said to you, it was just hearing, you know, being over there in New York, in the Bronx, and just hearing people. I saw the crowd,
yeah,
and then I went over there, and I don't even know who these people literally was.
Yeah,
they never really made it in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about, like, you know, blew up or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
and they was battling.
But you're talking about this was before it was even considered as a viable source of income. Like, it wasn't even a thought that people could quote unquote blow up.
Yeah,
it was just
listen. This was before Sugar Hill Gang.
Wow.
This was before they were putting rap on wax.
Yeah.
You understand? This was before that, and I'm like, oh, and I didn't know what they was doing. And, you know, just like talking, and it's like you know, in the early '60s, I mean late '60s, you know, we called it joning. You joning on someone. You talk about this, talk about that. You talk about people mama. But they really wasn't talking about nobody's mama.
Yeah.
He was just flowing with words.
Yeah, it was wordplay.
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then he would break, and then the other guy would come, and he would show his skills, and you know, and everybody was gathered around. There was no music, there was no nothing. Their voice was the rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, their voice carried the rhythm, and it was like, oh, you know, looking at it was like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? you know, because you know, my music background or whatever from that point was, you know, stylistic, the Delphonics, you know, stuff like that, Smokey Robinson, stuff like that coming out of there. Then to hear this, I'm saying, what kind of music is this? You know, is it music? First, I didn't even know if it was music or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't really understand. Like I told you, when you in history, you don't see the relevance of it. You just seeing it happen, and you may be like me at that point. I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
You know, I go back to Newark. You know, I'm like, yo, telling everybody, yo, man, y'all ever seen people just, you know, rhyming? You know, that's that rhyming. And that was the first thing they basically was, you know, instead of before they said rapping, it was like they rhyming, you know, rhyming with words, you know.
So people were like, "What do you mean?" People didn't know what you were talking about, huh?
Nah, nobody knew what I was talking about.
Rhyming?
And then, you know, and we all, and we started just going over there, and it was a hit and miss.
Yeah.
It was a hit and miss. It wasn't like, you know, at that point in time, it wasn't like that you go to the park or whatever the case may be, someone was out there every day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But as it grew and more people started gathering, you know, I mean, you go there about any weekend and boom. And then it was like, you know, especially when it moved into the music, man, you go to any house party, somebody grabbing the mic.
Wow.
You know, and then before it was like, again, before it was rapping, they was calling it DJing. Now DJing and got a whole different thing, but they was calling it DJing. You know, guy would get on and he'd start cutting up, and he'd just be talking.
They still call DJs rappers in Jamaica. They still call them DJs.
Yeah. But that's what they labeled it as, like here at first.
Yeah.
And then the terminology rapping came into effect. You know, and then when you had
and wait, hold up before you even go there. When they were doing the bebop and the jazz, they would say, "Well, why don't you talk your rap, brother?" That's how they used to say it. That was what they said, right?
Yeah. You know, when they said, like in the 70s, 60s, when they talk about rap, at that point, they're talking about your talk to girls or women. Yo, let me hear your rap. You know, you know, that's what that was laying down at then.
Yeah.
But rapping, you know, like I said, it evolved from DJing, and then you know, because like even DJing became part of hip hop because the mixing and the scratching of records, and you know, I remember when I first heard somebody scratch a record, I'm like, oh, what the hell?
Right.
I'm like, wow.
Oh man, they fucking up that record, man. They're scratching it out. What's wrong with it?
Yeah, it blew your mind.
Yeah.
Everybody. I remember my brother, he went and bought turntables.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be a DJ. Everybody. Because
Wow.
they wanted to rap, to cut records.
Do you remember what happened with like the Zulu Nation and them actually trying to create like an actual system? Like, okay, well, hip hop has this. It's is it 4 or 5 elements? I can't remember. DJ scratching, break dancing, rapping, graffiti. Like, do you remember when, you know, Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation were trying to create like a structure for all this randomness?
Yeah, I mean, they did really. I mean, like it wasn't like they was trying to. I mean, they
did it
in a lot of ways. They did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Zulu Nation, you know, was it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, was it? You know, and you know, it became rules to the game, and even to get into different clubs, different house parties, or whatever the case may be. I mean, you had to know somebody. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Dang.
You wanted to be in the mix.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could just come up in there and pay $5 and walk through the door.
Yeah. So it was kind of like an underground secret club that no one really knew about unless it was a person who told them about it.
Yeah, the clubs didn't listen. The clubs didn't want to hear that.
So you had to do it in houses and backyards and
you know, you didn't you know, the clubs in New York, Garage, and all the different clubs over there at that point in time, you know, you didn't go in there doing that. You know, once it became credible on the street and it started pulling people,
yeah,
then it got to, club worthy, where people started getting the mic and and rapping or whatever in the clubs. But first, it was just house parties and, like I said, in the parks on the corner, wherever. Like I think in the Biggie Small movie, he described how he was just walking down the street and someone wanted to battle him, and that's how it was. If you had a name for yourself, then another rapper wanted to battle, another DJ or whatever they was calling themselves back then. They wanted to battle you, and they searched for you.
Wow.
If anybody, if someone came around and said, "Yo, man, did you hear that guy Olin?" And then like another rapper hear your name,
yeah,
he got to prove his skills is better than yours, especially if y'all living in like, you come from Irvington. So if y'all both are in Irvington, y'all got to meet. Y'all got to meet. It's just no doubt about it that y'all got to meet.
Wow. So, I saw also too that this was getting so popular that anytime that there were a group of 3 or 4 men or women that were gathered, it was time to cipher up. And I don't remember what I was watching, but I think it was like mid-90s. It was the point where they had implemented the stop and frisk, and Rudy Giuliani, I believe, was the mayor at the time. They would often, harass the young men and women that were ciphering up, and then like, hey, you gotta break this up, and they're like, hey, they just rapping. I don't know what it was I was watching, but it was a big thing that the cops, were always suspicious about men or gathered and they were just doing something positive.
Listen, anytime you get a group of black people together, it was a saying, more than 3 black people is a gang. You understand?
Yeah.
There's more than 3 of y'all is a gang, and you get 15 souls, then that's a riot. You know what I'm saying? Especially powers to be.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going to use that word.
So with the NYPD being so vicious, the fact that they were able to make this so much organized and all that stuff, it's really pretty miraculous because there was nothing going in their favor to make it really work,
Listen, that's the way everything starts, especially in the black community. I mean, they had professors studying rap. They literally were studying rap because they didn't understand the lingo. Certain slang that they was using in rap and stuff, and you got to understand, when you take it back to slavery in America, that's how they passed messages through songs. The slave master thought that they was, just singing hymns or whatever, chanting.
Follow the drinking gourd.
Yeah. So they was passing messages from one plantation to the other plantation to the other plantation like that.
Wow.
When rap come up, it has to disturb when they don't know, what is this?
Right.
What does that word mean?
Right.
Because, they started creating their own words.
Yeah. And also I noticed that a lot of these, and someone had said this to me, I want to shout out to Rosebud. She was talking about how, like, the dudes that became popular MCs were not really street dudes, but they used all the street stuff because that's, how they were able to, create their aesthetic. A lot of the dudes that were the architects of this stuff were really just nerds and dorks. Like, you had to be a real dorky person to want to know the best words to say to somebody, or, break apart a motherboard so you can create a new device, or figure out a way to make the sound seamless between the loops. Like, you got to be a super dork to really do that stuff. So, I felt like a lot of these rappers that were actually just nerds, like, you know, bookworms and, like, you know, tech geeks that were intrigued by the street culture, that, you know, took that stuff and then, you know, put it into like their music and their art and stuff like that. But they weren't really that, and so
The bookworms, the geeks,
yeah,
took it to another level. That's what the geeks did. But let me,
mm,
like I told you, in the beginning, hip hop,
yeah,
you couldn't be a nerd.
right,
You couldn't be a geek.
right,
Listen, it was dangerous. It wasn't. Listen, the crowds you was around was dangerous. It wasn't like you know. I mean, listen, you had to fit in,
yeah, yeah,
or else, like, yo, who that nigga?
yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
right, right,
I
right,
mean, listen, and if you was a geek, you better come in there acting the part.
right,
You better not come in there geeking out.
right,
You better come in there acting the part,
right,
or else you get kicked out. I mean, even in the clubs back in them days, house parties, let me tell you, they just did not allow you in. Remember what I told you? You didn't get in not unless you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
yeah,
You know, like, and they vouching for you, but you wasn't getting in. You know what I'm saying? You
right,
just wasn't getting in.
right,
You know, tech guys just took the sound and everything to a different level. To a different level. You know, I mean, even when you talk about the late 80s, mid 80s, and the early 90s or whatever, you know, rap, just in the mid 90s, you start getting these guys that's not living the life. You know, they're rapping, whatever the case may be. They ain't about that life.
right,
We start. You should be about that life. You're talking about it started in the Bronx, dog. You know, so you know, New York is just New York. Listen, I remember when I remember when LL Cool J, and he had he came out with my radio. That was like one of his first big hits.
yeah,
And I remember him coming to Jersey. Everybody that came to Newark got robbed. You know, literally, I'm telling you.
yeah,
Telling you. Listen, you know, like, even today, like, my Brooklyn crew and all of us, we talk, and I like, listen, I come to Brooklyn, but y'all never come to Newark. It was that rough. It literally was that rough. So you're a rapper, you trying to get your name, and you really ain't about that life, you get yourself shot.
yeah,
You get yourself killed.
right.
You know, I'm talking about in the beginning.
In the beginning,
now,
yeah.
You got a lot of people that have skills.
Yeah,
They ain't really, they perpetrating on the mic.
yeah,
They didn't really live that life.
right,
You know, you still have some that live the life. Don't get me wrong about it, but a lot of them are just perpetrating it.
Right.
Because listen, when rap first came out and how raw in the cut how it was, they were just talking about everyday life, living in the hood, the roughness of it, or whatever the case may be.
yeah,
When you look at NWA, you know, which is later on, NWA just became so popular because they was talking about everyday life, literally. You know, they would go in the studio and say, "What happened to you today? What happened to you today?" And they would just say what happened to each other today, and then rap about it and throw it into lyrics.
wow,
You know,
yeah,
literally coming up with something that happened with them, you know, on their way to school or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
And then they would throw it down.
So a lot of these young people that didn't
That's
really
the way
read
most
newspapers or watch the news or stuff like that, they were pretty much getting the whatever information directly from the rappers at the time.
Yeah, I mean, when rap started becoming popular, they started trying to ban the music. You know, because rap took on a whole. That's what I'm saying. When hip hop started, it took on a whole nother form. Took on a whole nother form.
Right.
I mean, back in the day, you didn't hear all the cursing and you know. You know, now a lot of things is about four-letter word. If you ain't using the B word, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. You heard none of that. None of that back in when it started off. Nobody was like, and this, you know, nobody was doing that.
Yeah, unless they were like...
You had to have a good vocabulary.
Yeah,
You had to have a good vocabulary.
Unless they were like one of those like shock value artists, like, you know, Blowfly or something like that did like party records and would rap nasty stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Rakim, you look at some of the early ones that made it, even the ones that first came on Wax, Sugar Hill Gang, and all of them. You know, even the people that was part of the Zoo Crew, none of them used curse words.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
And if they did, it was very light. It was a very few. I know the Boogie Down Productions.
Yeah.
I listened to a lot of that stuff. Because remember, this show is called the Late Bloomer Podcast, mainly because of the fact that my first introduction into the hip hop sound was through my most memorable introduction. I probably had other stuff, but it was the Marshall Mathers LP, which I think came out in 2001 or something like that. So I've been doing a lot of post listening. So, you know, listening to Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim, listening to Big Daddy Kane, listening to the Boogie Down Productions, listening to a lot of this early stuff. Yeah, there was some cursing, but it wasn't like all over the place all the time.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, when it first you won't find a curse word in the Sugar Hill Gang. You know, none of it. I can't think of any rap off the bat that they was cursing in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And Curtis Blow, you don't see the cursing. You know, Rapper's Delight. You don't see the cursing. Download Rapper's Delight and listen to all that. You know, I think they only had like 2 hours. But
that song is what, like 10 minutes long? How long is that song? 15 minutes long? Something?
Yeah.
But
hip,
yeah.
Hip to the hip. Yeah. So.
But don't get me started on that song, because that actually song is kind of like funny to me, because it just confirms my idea that Jersey people are really shiesty. Because the whole song was a rip. Like, it was he bit off of somebody else's joint. He wasn't even an MC. He was just saying some other rapper's thing.
But that's what we was talking about with music, like what you was talking about with Jamaicans, you know, and Biden. You see something you like, and then you try to turn it into your own.
Yeah.
I mean, like now you talk to people, especially young people. You know, I talk to a lot of young people. You know, especially coming out of high school. But look, everybody want to be a rapper. Everybody want to be a producer, or whatever the case may be. This, that, and the other. And a lot of times, what I have found, just talking about, I ain't speak to everybody, but I'm just talking about what I have found.
Yeah.
You know, personally, they don't even know music. Like, they can't play music.
Right.
Like, it has become so, you know, you just go and steal beats that, you just find beats that someone else made. And then you try to put the beats together, this, that, and the other. You know, they don't know music. You know, some geek they done set up a beat machine, or you can download beats. They got, you know, and then it's just sampling. You know, you can hear songs. Songs like, oh, where did I hear that instrumental before? And then you're like, oh, that's Marvin Gaye, or that's this, that, and the other. The bass line is this, or what, or this, that. You know, so sampling, and that's what just about everybody was doing. You know, I mean, you know, with everybody. You know, when they talk, and you mentioned, you know, Biggie in your earlier
Yeah.
because of their death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you know, when people die, they become martyrs. You know, like, oh, but listen, man, Rakim, just talking straight, bars.
Yeah.
Stop. You know, I'm into this rapper, and I've been following this young lady for at least 2 years now.
Yeah.
And I think I posted some of her stuff today on because I just saw one of her new releases, and I guess she got a deal now. But when I was looking at it, she didn't have a deal.
Right.
And Young Dev. She just had bars.
Shout out to Young Dev. Yeah.
She just had bars, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then she was on Sway in the morning. Sway put her on.
Yeah.
And I heard her again, and I was like, whoa, this chick. You know, and then that's when I started following her.
Yeah.
You know, after the first time she was on Sway in the morning. I heard her before. Someone let me listen to her, and I was like, oh, she got bars, but I ain't paying too much attention.
Right.
But then when I heard her on Sway in the morning, because I think when I first kind of heard something from her, she had to be like 15, 14, something like that.
Wow.
And then when I heard her on Sway, she had to be like either 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like, wow, bars.
Yeah.
You know, I just like when people bring bars back.
So this is what I think is interesting, is because someone like you who was able to see it like in its form, where it was very word based, and someone like me who also appreciates the lyrical aspect of it, but can also appreciate the pop aspect of it as well. I feel like I'm in a better place because I'm not tied to anything particular. Like I could listen to real hardcore rapping with like lots of lyrics and bars and simple instrumentals, not too much musicality, or I could listen to something that's very poppy and very like crisp and like catchy. But I can appreciate what's good about all of that stuff.
Because one, you are you musically inclined. You love music, so when you have a passion for music as you do, you see it all. I mean, you look at musical great people who we could say, Prince, Michael Jackson, this, that, and the other. They listen to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think it's different for a creative than a consumer. Like, a consumer is going to listen to what they want, and that's what they have to. That's whatever's going to make them feel good. You don't want to be trying to listen to stuff just because. If it's what you like, it's what you like. Yeah.
Yeah, me personally, I'm a hip hop head, but I never wanted to be a rapper.
Yeah.
So I was always a consumer, as you say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my roots started out from the root of rapping. And now where rapping has gone, I mean, I'm not trying to say that they don't have no talent. Don't get me wrong. But, I don't see the bars.
Well, that's the thing that I have to tell a lot of the older people, no offense, because, but the people that are up there that, are purists to a degree sort of about lyrical prowess and bars, what you're talking about, it's there, and it's not just like, oh, well, maybe there's 2 or 3 guys that are doing it. No. There are MCs that you're talking about with like bars that are actually doing super big numbers. I'm talking about people like Griselda is a real big group. You got Royce the 5'9", who's a real great MC. There's a lot of like pure, just raw bar hip hop that still exists that doesn't just like float around in the underground. I'm talking about they do numbers. You know what I mean? And nowadays, because we're in the digital age, you can listen to anything that you want. You don't have to listen to things that are non-lyrical because there's an ample amount of artists that are doing what you're talking about.
see, and that's the catch to me nowadays. Difference between bars and throwing a good beat down.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know the groups that you mentioned. I can't say, but I'm when we get off, I'm going to hear. I'm going to go and I'm going
Yeah. I'll shit. Matter of fact, I'll post them in the comment section of this post. Some of these artists that are still doing what you're talking about. I'm talking about bars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what I'm going to say is, like, you know, a lot of times today they get some good beat or whatever, you know, behind them. You know, where people you know can crump to or whatever, and you know whatever, and they're not saying nothing.
Yeah.
You know, they may have a hook, and that hook is really the song.
Yeah.
Everything. You know what I'm saying? But everybody like it because, I mean, like, it's you know, like, and everybody liked her. But what was song that it was like popular? And she talked about my money like she a pimp. What's song? I can't think.
Cardi B?
Yeah. What's that song with about the money?
Money.
Gotta have my money. I can't think of it. God, I hate when I can't think. But anyway,
yeah.
The hook was way better than any bars. That hook about the money was way better than all the bars to me. You know, like I'm waiting to hear something go, whoa,
yeah.
Whoa, like that was creative. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Where you put this thing together and you go, whoa, oh, run it back, let me hear that again.
Yeah.
I don't hear that.
I still,
yeah.
I still can appreciate just the idea of just creating a vibe. Like, everything doesn't have to be like a shock, like, oh, we just said that. Because at some point, like, when has everything already been said? You know what I mean? but I don't want to get too far off of it.
That's the creativity of it.
Yeah.
You listen, and that's the mastery of it.
Yeah.
You know, a feel or a vibe, that's cool. People move to the feel or the vibe. You know, my man, come on, hey baby, hey baby, hey,
damn,
hey baby. Everybody was, oh, hey baby,
yeah.
Baby. But it was just stupid. But it was more of, like you say, the vibe, the music, the way it puts you, and you know, so cool. He did his thing. You know, I ain't knocking it.
Yeah.
But there was really no bars. There was really no, oh wow, he's creative.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you know, you get, it's like you get singers and you got performers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Hold on one second.
And,
yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like, yeah, there's a performance aspect that you're talking about that is really important. And so just so we don't get too far off topic, because we actually were trying to, I guess, make a point or talk about something as far as it being, I guess that the true answer is, because just from our conversation alone, that we can't oversimplify the whole entire creation of this thing that we love so much. That, how old are you now?
Man, I'm 55.
So pretty much what, 30 years of your life, 30, 40 years of your life have been hip hop.
Yeah.
You've seen hip hop from, like, you've only had 10 years of your whole existence where you weren't watching or witnessing hip hop happen.
Yeah, I've seen the baby grow up, dog.
Right. So I was saying, like,
I've seen the baby become a dump.
right. So someone like yourself I can't say, as much as I would like to take my people to take credit for something that exists, because it's so versatile and there's so much things happening and it's exploded nationwide. We can't boil all of it down to the one moment, even though it's widely accepted that DJ Kool Herc is the godfather of hip hop, the architect of the rap music that we know today. We can't, with all conscience, genuinely say, without being, wrong, dead wrong, that Jamaicans invented hip hop. Period. It's way more complex than that. It gets a little bit more crazier than that, and it's a lot more to it than just one particular event, right?
It's like this. It's like this. Everybody thinks that Michael Jackson created the moonwalk because he made it popular.
Right.
But Michael Jackson didn't create the moonwalk by far.
Yeah.
He saw somebody else in hip hop doing the moonwalk,
right,
and he was like, "Whoa, okay." And then he learned how to do the moonwalk. And then everybody's thinking like, "Oh, Michael Jackson, he created the moonwalk," and that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think it's the tap dancer. What's his name?
Some of the guy that played the first tap dance kid.
Yeah, his name was hold on, Bill Bailey, a tap dancer, and he would basically tap dance and do the tap dance, and then like he would tap dance backwards and slide across the floor in a way where it looked like he was walking forward. So he pretty much invented the moonwalk, and then of course Michael Jackson popularized it. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you really, I think more making it who was more relevant and making it mainstream.
Yeah.
Or bringing it to the light.
Yeah.
That's why I said your history.
But I think that when it comes to these histories, that we have to, as a people, we want to put a face to it or say this is where it started. But if hip hop is 30 years old, we could say without a shadow of a doubt that it's way older. But we want to put a face to it. We want to put a stamp on it. Like this is when it started. This is the beginning. But we can't do that. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, you gotta give reggae music, calypso music, the music their props of and like you said, and come on, man. I mean, the Jamaicans been rapping before. Before they made it, before they took hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. Hip hop became more than rap. It became, it wasn't even considered hip hop when it started. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It literally wasn't even considered hip hop. Hip hop came later.
Mm-hmm.
Because what white America always has to do, they have to or label something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, what are we going to do this? Or what are we going to do this? Or what are we going to do? Or what do you call yourself? Or, because they got to study you. They got to study you. Like I said, make sure you ain't no threat. So, hip hop comes later, and who would have thought graffiti, people was doing graffitis on the train and stuff, before hip hop became popular.
Yeah.
And then that became part of hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
break dancing became part of hip hop.
Yeah.
It was years before now you see all these famous break dancers, everybody popping,
yeah.
Groups, but God, now that was the part that I was in. I was like, I liked the break dance, and we had our little crew, and we would go different areas, battling people, this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
So hey, I didn't know it was gonna be part spinning on their head one day. I'm like, dang. I was like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa, did he just do that? So then, you going home, throwing the cardboard down on the ground, trying to figure this out.
Yeah. So hip hop. Yeah, hip hop has started out in the park. Now everybody trying to chart. So I can definitely say that I cannot say that hip hop was invented by Jamaicans, but I can say that we have a very intricate. What was the word I'm looking for? A very intricate, very important role in what we know today as hip hop music. So we're gaining on a 80-minute mark. I don't want to go too far, but just talking about this, just talking about how we could talk about literally this for 2 hours straight without breaking and still not even scratch the surface. It's definitely very, very easy to say that it's so nuanced and there's so much going on that you just can't pinpoint it to one particular event. And also, it also trips me out because of the fact that this is so complex and it's such a culturally driven thing, and it's so intricate that people would just go, like, there's literal people who have campaigns where they say rap is crap, or they'll play a song on the radio and if it's a pop record, they'll take out the rapper's verse. And it's just like, I just don't get how they could easily just dismiss this whole art form as just the junk, whatever, just because it doesn't appeal to their sensibilities. It's really interesting because a lot of people that say that genuinely don't know what we're talking about, that this is something that pretty much created an outlet for young Americans, Black Americans, Hispanics, to try and create something out of nothing, and to just say that rap is trash. It's just you don't understand that this is so much more complex than you can even fathom.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts in hip hop. And like I said, each generation is taking it to another level and putting their own stamp on it. I may not like all the stamps, but you may put your own stamp on it.
Yeah, but they're sending them letters out though, and they got checks in them.
That's why it's so great, man. That's why I love hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why I love hip hop.
Well, I really appreciate you coming up here, Uncle Lorenzo Kornegay, coming up on the show, man, and really giving us some perspective, man. I really appreciate you. I hope we can get you back soon enough so we could. I'm trying to do for the release of my grandma single, the first 24 hours Sabbath worship, Bible study thing on Friday night. So if you want to come through and drop some bars for us, man, and let us know some stuff on Instagram Live, we would really appreciate you to come through, man.
Yeah, I would love to.
Even if it's for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, man.
All right.
Yeah, I want to talk about Joseph.
All right. Got it.
All right. You have a good one, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Right. You too, my brother.
All right, bro. Peace. Yep. So that was the OG Lorenzo that was really just putting us on game, basically. What we know today as rapping and bars and hip hop and R&B and all that stuff. I mean, he was there the whole time when it first started. He saw it happen in real time. He saw it come to fruition. And while my pride and my culture makes me want to say Jamaicans invented hip hop, it's just not fair. I can't say it. And, I appreciate y'all for listening. And this is episode 4 of the Late Bloomer podcast. We're going to go ahead and wrap that thing up because not only is it really hard for me to edit down a video that's this long, it's also really taking up a lot of space on my hard drive. Let me stop. Anyway, I love y'all. Jazz, I'm sorry that you just got into the IG portion of this thing, but I'm about to close it out. I will be posting the episode on all streaming platforms, and I might put it up tonight. It will probably hit all the stores by Thursday. So also keep an eye out for the single Pat, Peace and Tranquility, about my grandmother, produced by Stone. And love y'all. Peace and love.